All right, welcome back to the House Environment Committee. We are about to discuss our budget letter, which is on our webpage now under Representative Kate Logan's name, the latest version of it. It is similar to what we looked at on Friday before we went home, but there are highlighted changes that we need to discuss. I don't know if you would like to start with that, or you want others to start with it.
I'm happy to explain the changes that got made. So there was a request, this top highlight, there was a request to add a phrase here about encouraging sufficient funding for conservation efforts, and Representative Chapin could speak more to that. And then this top bullet point, making it a critical needs list, was because virtually everyone voted in favor of including base funding in the amount of $450,000 for the 3 additional FTE. I think it is actually, I think it does require an apostrophe S there because it's full-time equivalents.
Well, definitely an S, but I think the question is
Without
the
an apostrophe. I think you're supposed to put an apostrophe after an acronym before an S. I'm not sure. I'll Google it. I always have to.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's how that got here on this list. But the reason I highlighted both of those things is because those were requests that were kind of made not with the approval of the whole group at the time.
Yeah.
And then I reordered the priorities for additional funding in the order of the votes.
Okay. And Representative Chapin, do you want to speak first on the those changes?
Sure, just the top one on VHCB's funding, it's actually just there's a split between how money that goes from the state to the Housing and Conservation Trust Fund gets divvied within VHCB targeted towards housing and conservation. And so I think traditionally each committee sort of speaks up for their side of that equation. And so we're just sort of saying, we particularly care about conservation here as a committee and want to make sure that conservation is getting well funded through the state funding to VHCB, not really weighing in on exactly what that means. So I did hear that other committees are doing that also. Ag Committee's letter also says basically the same thing. So that was suggested, and I thought that made sense and reflected our things that we hear about in our committee and intentions we have in our committee. So that was just a suggestion. And then while I'm speaking, I'll just weigh in and say I totally support putting the base funding for a couple more FTEs to ensure the implementation of Act 121 as the Flood Safety Act. I think we heard a lot of testimony in our committee about a lot of programs that both are trying to implement that act and also are responsive to floods when they happen. And I want to see those. Anyway, I support that being a top critical need. I know it got a lot of support, and I think it makes sense for it to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, and I guess I would add that the conservation districts are kind of a split between the Ag Committee as well as our committee. So it's almost like it's a Title VI section of statutes, not even our title. Like, we don't operate in that directly in the ag sector. They come to us because we have overlapping interests around clean water. But obviously the funding for A&R is 100% in our wheelhouse. And also, I think we took so much testimony thanks to the Flood Safety Act, but then also the bill that Representative Chapin introduced, where we're at with the Flood Safety Act. And the reality is that A&R said they need more staffing, and neither the administration nor the legislature has really given them the staffing they need. And we are hearing that they need additional capacity. Other thoughts on the letter?
I have a question. I thought House Transportation was doing a chloride bill as well. adding this into a bill. Or, and I'm not sure if it's the same program. I'm not saying we should change them, but I'm just wondering how that works. You know, if they are,
I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. We've had a request from a member of House Transportation to do a shared hearing, which I would like to do on a program in Lake George. That's, or in the Adirondacks, I think it's Lake George area, that has helped reduce chloride contamination in that watershed. That's the only thing I know about crossover in terms of that topic.
thought I remember reading a short transportation bill. And at the last item was, you know, a chloride program, but I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Other thoughts on the letter? Representative Labor.
Further down, under, can we move down?
Yes,
Okay.
wherever you're,
The one-time funding for 200,000 to DEC to implement the initial stages for chloride contamination reduction. Why should we spend $200,000 to buy less? Isn't this an educational program we looked at in New Hampshire?
yeah,
And they have a program. And have we contacted them to see their educational materials and see if they were purchasable with an agreement?
yeah. I mean, this is to run the training programs and get it started.
Precisely. That's what I'm getting at. I think $200,000 for an educational program, and you're gonna be. Does not make any sense to me.
They'll be training all it's a voluntary training program, so municipalities as well as private.
Well,
Just
the municipalities are already doing V-Trans. If it's like
So
ours.
it's just
from
for the
last-
private applicators. And it would be
Said they want
modeled,
this.
it's our understanding it would be modeled off New Hampshire's program.
Right.
And it would be expanding training that V-Trans already does. So I think that they would need added capacity is what we heard.
Yeah.
So
to get it going.
it's a little bit of money, but it's, not a lot of money, but, and it's like initial money. It's like our understanding this wouldn't be an every year. If I recall, maybe
No, I think it was a one
one time.
but I don't know.
Additional.
Oh. Um, hope it's sorry. All right, further discussion, Representative North.
Yeah, I guess as much as I understand, importance of Act 121 and making sure we get the river corridors finished big map. When I voted to move that up in priority, I voted to move it up in priority within the top priorities for
Mhm.
additional funding, not as a critical need. So I'm not in favor of putting that up in the critical need area.
Yeah, well, I actually anticipated we'd probably have another vote on it. Because we didn't, the thing is, the Conservation District, Ella did a great job, articulating the need, which we all agreed with. But then we took it out of the voting round. So I figured we'd have another voting round today.
I am in favor of having that as the top need under top priorities, but I'm not in favor of having it under the.
Hmm,
We identified the NRCD as the critical need.
yeah, so we will vote on that difference. Representative
I'll
Tagliavia.
go with that one too. I like that.
Hmm. There's,
All in the same category. That's what we talked about.
Representative Sackwitz.
I appreciate having those three DC positions being our top priority. If only because of for how long we've been hearing about staffing needs in A&R and how understaffed they are and how this will really be so incredibly helpful for them to get their work done, the work that we've asked them to do. This is really important work.
guess I'll just pipe up and say, you guys just died. The exact number off the top of my head, but Deputy Secretary was very
682.
682 FTEs. That's one out of every 1,000 men, women, and children that live in the state of Vermont works for ANR at an average of, again, I need to get to my email to
80K plus 60K in benefits.
yeah, $140,000 per person. 682 people. I don't think we can claim they're understaffed. That is, that's a lot of people. And to claim that we're not adequately supporting them, I don't think is correct. I think we adding yet another 3 FTE to the mix, which means every year that's going to be included. I don't know. I'm really loath to do that. Just really struggle with that. Even in a year, I mean, as you can see from the numbers as we put in our letter, that everything keeps getting more, people keep getting more expensive to the tune of 6.8% per year. So the increases in FTEs remain flat, but salaries, wages, benefits gone up by 6.8%. That's 6.8% more money we got to collect from taxes from people. Just, don't see how we can say we're not supporting them. Literally 1 out of every 1,000 people working for the agency of natural resources. That's just one little slice of our government. That's just a lot. It's not bad.
Is that Chapin?
Definitely, it's a really big agency. I just know that the Flood Safety Act is intended to stop things from happening in communities like mine, where people's homes have been unlivable for 2 years. We're still waiting for support, or we need to start supporting a different way of building and developing in our floodplains. So I guess I'm just, we know the agency wants to do this work. You know, it's critical, it's a public safety need, not just an environmental need. It's really there's a lot of need in Vermont to address how people relate to floods. And I just, I think it's reasonable to think that an agency of the scale and size of ANR both be good at, we do expect them to be good at looking for efficiencies, creating efficiencies within their team, and working with the governor's team to sort of figure out how to do that and live within the means of our budget and speak up when they can't meet the needs of what the legislature is asking them to do for flood resiliency and public safety. And that's what we heard from a number of different teams within DEC that address aspects of public safety and permitting and planning and rulemaking that we've asked them to do. And so I guess to me, this feels rational and reasonable, and so it feels critical to me, literally, that public safety and the flooding issues, to me, make this align with the word critical.
Representative Taglivia.
Out of the other top priorities that we have listed for additional funding, is there any appetite to make cuts from those to bump it into the base funding for the 3 additional FTEs for DEC? I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can do this and show that we're trying to be fiscally responsible.
Can I just see if I understand? Are you saying like take away one of the other, the bottom three bullets?
Find a way to reduce either one or all of those to find the money for the other.
I think I probably could do that.
Within the other 679 FTEs.
No, I'm talking about if you look at the top priorities, the money that's in those three. They can cut somewhere.
This is all addition.
Well, the critical need one is not.
If it's if DEC thinks it's a critical need, if A&R thinks it's a critical need. Are all 682 employees employed at that same level of criticality? Or is there a priority in there that they could say, well, they could rank them from 1 to 682 and say, well, say these three. Move them up to the critical need.
It's a good question.
I think I appreciate your concern for the bottom line very much. And I am open to people looking for programs that are no longer necessary and not meeting current needs. But in the face of not having that information today, I lean towards, you know what, I bet we're getting a heck of a deal. And something that really resonated for me and what Christy said about the bottle bill carries over here, which is we can't always see the good we're getting. You know, and right now people are looking at challenges of permitting, right? But there are reasons we have systems set up, and it was usually to respond to a problem. Many of those are now gone. I think of, you know, how we do wastewater, on-site wastewater permitting in wells. People were polluting their own wells. That was happening. And we set up systems to avoid it today. And so it doesn't happen today. So people think, what's the problem? And I think it's really important when you're evaluating whether or not we can get rid of some department or division or program that we're doing, that we don't go backwards in terms of taking care of Vermonters and their environment, which they've asked us to do. So I'm open to the cut conversation, the permit conversation, but done responsibly and not at a moment's notice because we just are feeling like we're spending too much money. We need to actually be able to evaluate the costs and benefits of what each program is giving us.
Yeah.
And everything that I have heard and the urgency with which many people in this room, but outside this room, are feeling about the vulnerability that Vermont faces related to flooding feels like an imperative that we do something more to help DEC respond well, because we know that every time there's a flood, they actually get derailed and have to go deal with the immediate disaster. And then it puts off the preventative, the ounce of prevention investments that are quite conservative. Stopping damage before it happens is like the most conservative thing we can do. And I don't think that this DEC takes it lightly to say, originally when we passed the Flood Safety Act, this is how many people we need. They weren't fluffing that up. And we still kind of didn't give them what they asked for. So I'm feeling really strongly that we should be supporting that work, especially in this moment. Representative Voss.
I agree. I think safety to me is the top priority. And I would imagine those three positions, they could be engineers that are specifically trained in dam safety, either, looking at the dams, determining how far they are before they're going to break and what needs to be done. Kind of the inspection process, because it can be prevented. Flooding from a dam bursting can be prevented, and the thing that would stop it would be a human action, because we either didn't have enough people or people weren't checking up on the dams or, weren't doing what needed to be doing to prevent that. But it definitely would be a human error. And that is a top priority for me.
More? You ready?
Chair. Pardon me? Yeah.
You ready?
I spoke to this on Friday, I think, and I apologize for not being here. But I mentioned the number of FTEs that we originally were looking at. It that was causing me some heartburn relative to my town budget and what we're trying to get passed this year. And so I appreciated where this committee was migrating to come up with a solution. And I like Representative Taglevia's option. If these are critical positions and we see the need for that. And I'm not sure this committee has the authority to suggest that we offer funding from some other program, but I like that idea. This is 3 new employees, full-time employees. If there's a way to compensate that, I think it is, I think it does have merit. I think it is valuable. It's adding 3 new on top of what we got. And if we can restructure, or the agency can restructure employees to shift for whatever, I like that idea. That's a direction that I was leaning on Friday, and I could still there, I think. So I can support this, but where does the money come from?
So I think what Representative Tagliavini was saying was he would like to get rid of one or all of the 3 bullets at the bottom.
I just want us to be able to send a message inside of the budget crunch that we have, that we're trying to do our part as the Environment Committee. There are 13 other committees that are wrestling, I hope, with the same issues.
I think they are. Yeah, so can have that. I think I'm hearing that an openness to the conversation about the top priorities for additional funding list.
Could we take $500,000 away from the,
Well, none of this money's going anywhere.
Oh,
This
okay.
doesn't exist. So I think it's more just,
so we could
it's just, I think putting an exclamation point behind our critical needs. If we remove the bottom list, I'm open to that.
serve, learn, earn.
Doesn't change the bottom line.
It doesn't change the bottom line, but we're not asking for, things we are sure we're not gonna get. Pretty sure. So, I mean, should we just stick to critical needs? Representative Hoyt.
I would support that. I do support the additional FTEs just based on the testimony that we seem to have gotten from A&R. That they just don't have the staffing to do what the legislature has asked them to do. So I do think that's critical. I'd be okay if we got rid of the top priorities, Some of that is, like the governor asked for like 500,000 for serving or so there is some money there. It's likely to get in Portland.
Yeah.
I'd probably just focus on the staffing. I think that seems to be the most important.
Yeah, and in our area, Representative Logan.
Yeah, I don't support eliminating the additional priorities. I also don't support the austerity language that we're using around this budget right now. The reality is that the top income earners in Vermont received over $700 million in tax breaks from the Big Beautiful Bill Act. And many other states are seeing this as an opportunity to increase revenue from top income earners to fill crucial state needs. Because it seems like the federal government is evolving some of their responsibility to states. So I would support raising revenue that would be more than sufficient to pay for what are relatively minor needs in the face of hundreds of millions of dollars.
I just don't think the governor is gonna sign it, I don't think he will.
This
sign
is-
it. I'm sorry, just sign a bill where.
It's not a bill, it's a letter.
Well, the budget, he won't sign a budget where we have to raise taxes. Which is, he's made very clear, so.
If we're talking about sending a message, because this is just kind of our budget letter to appropriations, and they're gonna take this as an
Right.
advisement.
So you want to
We're-
send them a.
We're saying that all these things are important, we ought to be trying to find the money to support these, which you can, that's what Logan just very something like that.
Representative Chapin.
I think it's important to acknowledge that the letter is not just a communication to appropriations, but it's a public statement on things that we believe are important and have what I would consider a good return on investment. And I wonder if identifying the lower list as things that we believe have a really important return on investment and are going to save the state money in the long term would be a different way to acknowledge those what I would consider missed opportunities. And yeah, I guess I wonder if there's something a statement that still sort of acknowledges that specifically, if I look at those three, I can see the return on investment. It just takes me 2 seconds to be like, that will save us money in this way, that will save us money. So I guess I just wonder if there's a different way to articulate that as opposed to saying we want the appropriations. I don't think it is our intention to communicate to the appropriations committee that we expect them to try and fit that in, nor that we think that that's even doable or possible or reasonable right now without raising additional revenue. But I do think we could be messaging not just to that committee, but to everyone who reviews this bill, that we do see the value and the return on investment on those three programs.
I like that idea especially within the critical needs area, to identify what we see as the reason why. I mean, we shouldn't just ask for more money. We should tell them why. There's no why on this anywhere. And if it really is leveraging $billion worth of savings, then what of that? Or how many houses could they move out of flood zone? That translates to real dollars. So I think that would be helpful to add, at least to the two critical ones. At the same time, that same thought, we should also, I believe, ask A&R and friends of A&R come to us every year with a lot of asks. I would like to ask A&R back to say, okay, if you're going to come to us with asks, come to us with offerings as well. Here's our top needs. Here's our ranked activity that we're currently doing. And here's the bottom 10% of things that we're currently doing, but really aren't returning much. So maybe we can, because we never hear about the bottom performing. If you ranked it, there's got to be a bottom 10%. There just has to be. We never hear about that. We never hear about the offerings like we might be able to save some costs to the taxpayers by shaving off 25% of the FTEs on this program because maybe they're a little overstaffed now. We never hear about that. We should hear about it. We should ask the A&R to provide that information.
Yeah, Representative Logan.
Just a quick response to that. I would expect that this budget reflects what the administration thinks is most cost effective.
Yes.
I've been in business many years, and I know what putting budgets together is like. Take what you spent last year and you just look at what you want to do the next year and then you add to it. Very, very rarely, unless you're really forced by some, external owner or somebody who's in top management to say, you got to cut 10%. You have to, you got to have a ref or whatever. You don't bother to look at that. You just add every year. I mean, that's just the way you do your budgeting.
Representative Chapin.
I mean, I couldn't agree with both of you more, and I really wish that, and I think we're trying to make some improvements in what we get from the administration and the different agencies and departments that come in to share with us. And it's such a challenging exchange of information from administration with teams the size of 600 plus employees to come into a committee that meets for 5 months to help us understand. So I I think we're trying to make improvements on how we get that flow of information. And I do hope and expect that each agency is doing the work that Representative Logan just described, where they've actually already gone through and done the efficiency, but we don't know that. So we do want to know about
They're
it.
doing it. Let's see it.
So
Yeah.
I really do think it would be great to see more evidence of that. Like 15 years ago, the state tried to institute RBI.
Results-based accountability.
RBA. And I was on the state set, like running a program that used that, I think it was an effort to sort of like get at this, where are we? Where are we always evaluating every program on a regular basis, and so we can find those efficiencies, find things that are no longer needed, programs that put themselves out of business, just like nonprofits might. Anyway, I totally agree. I think we don't have. So I think it'd be great to have more of that input from agencies through the budgeting process. And I hope that there is a lot of that happening. And I do think that process can encourage it if there is a more transparent process.
And yes, this is great conversation. Representative Labor.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe it's in the verbiage. If you look at the top 4 bullets, the cumulative savings there of $49 million.
You talk a lot of things.
Well, if you look at the decrease,
Oh, the decreases, yeah,
look
right.
at the decreases, you're saving 49 million overall.
I would say we're not saving 49 million. We $49 million worth of ARPA funds have been spent and they're gone. We're saving nothing.
It sort of changes those dollars are changing our perception of our budget.
It looks good on paper.
But so back to this, because we want to all, we need to get this to the appropriations committee.
Yes.
So I heard suggestions for some just presentation changes more than the words we're using to describe. I think the why is a really important suggestion. Why we think it's important, why we think it's a worthwhile investment for Vermonters.
Ready to type.
I'm ready.
Maybe we can not do that committee style.
Yeah.
Since I think we heard a lot of great testimony on these things and
Sure.
I'm happy to
Propose it, yeah. And we could bring a draft back. Are we trying to do
In
that
like-
today?
Yeah,
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Yep, we could do
Okay,
that.
we're gonna take a break for
Okay.